welcome to Red Eyes members. We're glad to have you aboard, and thank you for joining us. We have David Flynn with us, and we are talking about everything from the Watchers and geometry to the Mars-Earth connection to Roswell 2012 and David's discovery of the geoglyphs at Tiwanaku. And I want to begin this segment to talk a little bit more about the 2012 date and the potential Earth changes or cataclysm that is coming. And I want to ask you, David, if you think that it is specifically the Watchers who are at this point kind of handing down the information about this date and the cataclysms, and if so, if you also think that there potentially could be humans within some of these, let's call them illuminated fraternities, that are aware of all of this and actually have gained this knowledge for themselves and in a way are trying to protect themselves, if you will. It's a long question, but answer what you can with that, if you will.
I think you're right. I think there are some men who have known these things for a long time. I think the purveyor of the information for these men were the Watchers, and that, as some people say, that the Watchers had actually given this information in great antiquity. I think that's true, but I think they continue to do it. I think that they have power to continually move through the workings of men and continue to put the information that they want into the fore of into the mainstream. As far as the focus of 2012 on a cataclysm, it is a central sort of theme of Revelation, especially. And there is, interestingly enough, a cryptic mention of the year 2012 in Revelation itself. And this is something that I had found just recently, and every time I look at it, it gets a little bit greater, I think, in significance to me. Mm-hmm. But it's what people haven't really noticed until this time, and I think probably because of the idea that these things are kind of time-release information. They actually are designed, because of the symbolic form, to become full-fledgedly understood right up before the event. Now, one really interesting thought is the name Watcher can be found cryptically, can be found hidden in plain sight in many of the common names that we use when it comes to time itself. Our calendar, for example, the Gregorian calendar, is from the Greek word Gregorai, which means to watch. Although Pope Gregory had actually been the one who helped calibrate this calendar because of a change from the Julians,
right.
Nevertheless means the Watcher calendar, literally.
Interesting.
The dragon in Revelation is something that, going back to the idea that the year 2012 is actually pointed out in Revelation. It is in Revelation 11 and Revelation 12 where the focus is for these time-based prophecies. Revelation 12 especially, talking about the dragon that throws a third of the stars to the earth. And eschatologists have looked at that for a long time, ever since John wrote it on the island of Patmos, supposedly around 100 AD. But this symbol is not ever, and I don't think it's ever been looked at chronologically, that it's actually a time signature. It's always been interpreted as the idea that hierarchically the dragon represents Satan as the top of the angelic rebels, and that because of his power, he had authority over a third of the angelic host, to cause them to fall, to cause them to rebel against that also. Although this interpretation can fit, because I think a lot of what's in Revelation, a lot of the prophecies you find in the Bible is not just limited to one small, when I say one narrow sort of understanding. It covers so many other things. It actually is almost holographic in its nature.
Right.
Because by breaking it down, you still find even more information.
Yeah.
But the main point, then, about this is that I think it's a time signature. And the reason I think it's a time signature is because if you think about the heavens, celestially, at least in the northern hemisphere, the very largest constellation that we have is Draconis.
Yeah.
And that occupies most of the northern celestial hemisphere. And in fact, during the precession of the equinox, precisely 1/3 of that portion, the actual northern axis of our Earth, is tracing a line along the circle on the tail of Draconis. So literally, 1/3 of this precession is anchored to the tail of Draconis. And for this third of the precession, because we're anchored on this axis where the star points, we're actually at imaginary axis of the north, points to a star along the tail of Draconis. His tail is literally where is the fulcrum for how the Earth has the stars rising and setting every night.
Mm.
So in a literal way, he does throw the stars of the heavens to the Earth, 1/3 of them, or at least 1/3 of the precession. And then the more interesting part is that you realize that the number 33 turns up, especially in illuminated fraternities, as the highest number, the number that supposedly ties all their information together. The one that is, I think, a forecast and also a time signature to the point where they look forward to of a utopian world system. So they're not just talking about 33 as a geometric, esoteric sort of fraternal binding sort of, esoteric thing that
right.
So we only know this and nobody else does, and so we're special.
Right.
They really look at it as the marker of when everything they've worked for will come into full blossom. And the thing is, you actually can find one of the greatest events in Christianity occurred in 33 AD. And that, somewhat debated, but the idea that Christ himself was 33 years old when he died and resurrected from the dead.
Right.
So this idea of resurrection from the dead is connected in a way, I think, to what is believed about 2012. When previously I talked about Terence McKenna saying that he thought time itself would end at 2012. His idea was that we would invent time travel, or that some extraterrestrial being would come with the ability to travel within time. I asked one of my friends one time what he thought, from a Christian perspective, how anyone could think time could end. How, from men's perspective, time could end. And he told me, at the resurrection we become immortal, and so time ceases to be for us, because time itself is actually, by definition, a point between two eternities. So if you're immortal, you no longer necessarily exist in time.
Right.
And I thought that was incredibly profound, because what you see in Revelation 11 and Revelation 12 is pointing to the idea of mankind moving from this temporal plane and being mortal and changed into some immortal beings. And those that were immortal, as angels, being cast down and becoming bound by the actual physical laws that we were. We actually trade places at a specific point in time and at a specific point in the future. Getting back to the number 33, if that turns out to be an anchor on our calendar, on our watcher calendar, the Gregorian calendar, you find a very strange thing when you look at precession. Because if precession takes 25,920 years to complete one circuit, then a third of that time is 8,640 years. 8,640 years, if that is actually anchored somehow, the 33, the age of the resurrection of Christ, and somehow anchored so that we can figure out when does it begin and when does it end. Well, let's just say for the sake of argument that it ends at 2012. What a very, very strange thing happens then if you actually count back to the year 33 AD. You get 1,980 years, which is exactly 60, is the number we use for, calibrating every hour, times 33. So 60 times 33 is exactly 1,980 years. 2012 to 33 AD. Now, if you count back, now that gives us 1980 years. So you still have to account for the rest of 8,640 years of the precession. So counting back from 33 AD into the past, what you're left with is 6,660 years. So 6,660 years plus 1980, of course, gives you your 8,604 years, one perfect third of the precession. And for that perfect third of the precession, our northern axis has been tracing along the tail of Draco, where he throws all the stars of that third of the precession to the Earth every night. And when we get to the year 2012, that whole timeline will have ended. And in a grand sort of demonstration of the idea of that turnaround of those that were more immortal being thrown to a mortal place, and those human beings who were mortal bringing into immortality, and switching this place, you look at the actual text in forward in Revelation 11 and also Revelation 12, and it talks about that exact event. The idea is that men on this earth look to what Christ did on the cross when he was 33, and when he rose from the dead when he was 33, because they're looking for eternal life, they're looking for a changeover of their bodies, they're looking for immortality. You find that it fits together in this seamless way, and you find that it doesn't go against the traditional interpretation of Revelation either. It's just, in addition, you're finding that there's a literal way to look at it as a time signature. And where a lot of eschatologists get into trouble is, and especially in the Protestant areas of eschatology, because in Catholicism there's not too much looking forward to the second advent, but in the Protestant areas there's a great deal of interest in it.
Yeah.
But anomalistically, they also say you cannot know the day or the hour. I think that's almost a deliberate mistranslation of what the prophecies say. Because in every case where you see Christ himself saying, you will not know the day or the hour, he's speaking to a church that's either backslidden or turned away or is dead. And you can find it in the first part of Revelation where he says, if you do not watch, you will not at all know the hour of his coming. But of course, you turn that around. If you do watch, you will. He actually says that you're supposed to. And our calendar is actually named the Watcher calendar. And the dragon in Revelation, Draconi, means to gaze or to peer intently, which is another form of watching. And those beings that are actually supposed to be thrown down to this earth have, by their own admittance, called themselves watchers. In antiquity, and even if you can equate these beings, the aliens that are the culprits in the alien abduction phenomena, those people that have been abducted have said they that they're the watchers.
Right.
So you said the same motif played over and over and over again, even in popular culture, in history, and also in these religious texts. And that's just one example of how 2012 fits into these paradigms, and why 33 is such a huge focus of that. And of course, that fits right into the Roswell event, because you have almost an act, it's almost like a pantomime of what is to come in a small way. You have these beings that supposedly they crash landed, or there was something that happened to them. They were thrown down to the earth at Roswell and died. Maybe would live for a while, but the thing is that motif is intact. And then you look at the theurgic sort of component of that event, and it